Have you ever felt like you've reached the very end of your strength? As if everything is falling apart, and no one on earth could possibly understand your pain? Have you ever laid your head down at night, eyes full of tears, whispering to God, "Please, give me a sign, a direction, a way out"? If you've ever been there, please hear this truth. You are not alone, and what you're going through is not the end of your story. Maybe it feels like you've prayed too many times, cried too many tears, waited too long for anything to change. But what if today is the moment heaven decides to start something completely new and beautiful in your life? Have you ever felt like God was silent? Like your prayers went up but nothing came back, and your tears were unseen even by the skies? There are days when your heart wakes up heavy and your soul falls asleep exhausted, desperately longing for just one sign from above. A gentle whisper saying, "I'm here, just hold on a little longer." But instead of a whisper, there's only silence. And it's in that silence that many give up, because silence can hurt, it can scare, and it can convince us we've been forgotten. But listen closely. God's silence is not the end. It's the quiet before something you cannot yet see begins to unfold. We've been taught that if God loves us, He speaks, and if He cares, He answers. But no one told us about the silence before miracles. Think of Joseph, betrayed by his own brothers, thrown into a pit, sold as a slave, falsely accused and locked in prison for years. Not for a few days or months, but for many long years. And through all that time, it seemed like God said nothing at all. But God was there, in the silence, shaping Joseph's heart, strengthening his faith, and aligning every unseen detail into place. So I ask you, from my heart to yours, have you mistaken God's silence for His absence just because He didn't move on your timeline? There are things God can only build in silence, healings that only happen while waiting, faith that only grows through unanswered questions. His silence is not rejection. It's an invitation, calling you to trust Him even when you hear nothing and see no sign. I know it's hard, because we want the answer now, we want the comfort now, we want a way out. Right now. But maybe what God is teaching you in this season is not how to escape it, but how to grow in it, how to live through it with purpose. Maybe you're stuck in a job that drains you, or your marriage feels like it's breaking, or you carry a grief that no one else sees. And you cry out, "God, where are you?" And His answer is still silence, but not abandonment. He is working in ways you cannot imagine. Look at Moses. He spent 40 years in the desert before hearing God speak through a burning bush. 40 years of silence before purpose. In that silence, God was shaping the deliverer of a nation. We need to understand this. Waiting time is never wasted time. It is there that God builds deep roots. When you see no way out, you learn to trust. When you feel nothing, you learn to persevere. When you don't understand, you learn to surrender. What if I told you that you are one step away from a new beginning, but this step requires enduring the silence without giving up? Have you ever seen how a sculptor works? He looks at a raw block of marble and sees a masterpiece. But before the beauty emerges, he must chip away, carve and sand. The marble does not understand. It feels the pain. It does not know that it is being shaped into something magnificent. This is how God works with us. He sees what no one else sees. He knows what we have yet to know, and in the silence, He is molding us. Want proof? Look at Jesus. Before His ministry, 40 days in the wilderness, silence, temptation, isolation. But when He came out, He was ready. He was filled with the Spirit. He was strengthened. You might be in your wilderness right now. You might think it's over, but it's not. It's just the beginning of something much greater. What you do now, in this moment of silence, will define what comes next. So I want to propose a challenge. Nothing complicated. Just a simple gesture that can change the way you see silence. For 7 days, before you go to sleep, instead of complaining or crying, close your eyes and say, "God, I trust what you are doing, even when I don't understand." Just that. And allow this act of surrender to soothe your soul night after night. Because what you are living today may seem dark, painful, and senseless. But someday you will look back and say, "It was in that silence that God spoke to me most clearly." Do not confuse the difficult moment with the end of the story. Do not trade your faith for immediate answers. And please, do not give up just because it still hurts. God did not bring you this far to abandon you along the way. He is faithful to complete the good work He began in you. Believe. Hold on just a little longer. God's silence is the prelude to the most amazing miracles you will ever experience. Sometimes, the pain inside is so loud that all you want is to disappear, to vanish, to stop existing. You feel like you can't take it anymore, that no one understands, that the world would go on just the same if you weren't here. That suffocating feeling, that deep anguish. Perhaps you're feeling it right now, and if you are, I want you to hear this truth with all your heart. The pain you feel today may be the very tool God will use to transform your life, and through it, change the lives of others as well. Can you imagine that? That the pain that makes you cry in secret, that consumes you inside, can become a powerful testimony? It can become the hope of someone else who is also thinking of giving up. Because yes, your suffering, no matter how senseless it seems now, can have a purpose. And no, it doesn't lessen your pain. It doesn't make it easier. But it gives it a new meaning, a new destination. Remember Job? He didn't just lose some things. He lost everything. Children, health, wealth, reputation. He even lost the support of his wife and friends. Yet, even in his agony, covered in sores, without understanding what was happening, he declared, "The Lord gave, the Lord has taken away. Blessed be the name of the Lord."
Who in their right mind can worship in the middle of loss? Who has the strength to say, "Blessed be your name," when everything falls apart?
Only those who know the God who turns pain into purpose and tragedy into testimony can lift their hands while in the fire. Job went through it all. His family, wealth, and health were stripped away. Yet in the end, God restored everything twofold. But the real miracle wasn't in what he got back. It was the faith that endured the flames, the story that still echoes today. Maybe you're in a season that doesn't make sense. Maybe you lost someone you deeply loved, or received a diagnosis that shook you. Maybe your heart was shattered by someone you trusted, or life hit you so hard that no one even noticed, and now you're worn out inside. But what if I told you you're not alone? That there are thousands of others going through pain just as deep as yours, maybe even deeper. That some cry silently, thinking about giving up, and what might save them tomorrow is hearing how you made it through today. Take Nick Vujicic, for example. Born with no arms and no legs, he faced bullying, rejection, and deep emotional pain since birth. At the age of 10, he tried to drown himself in his bathtub. He wanted it to end, but God stepped in and rewrote his story. Today, Nick is a global speaker, husband, father, and author who has reached millions across dozens of countries with his message. And all because he chose not to give up on his darkest day, because he let his pain fuel his purpose and gave his scars a voice. Now think about your journey. All the nights you cried yourself to sleep, the days you felt like you couldn't go on but still did. Everything that tried to destroy you couldn't take you out. You're still here, and maybe all this is preparing you for what's ahead. Maybe you're being shaped to lift others, with your voice, your experience, and the wounds that became witnesses of survival. Because there's no testimony without a fight, no healing without a wound, no resurrection without a death. That very pain you think no one understands might be the bridge that links your heart to someone else's who is slowly fading. That's why you have to keep going, not just for you, but for everything that still has to be born through you. Picture this. Months or years from now, someone hears your story and says, "What you went through saved me, gave me strength to stay." This is real. It happens every day. People who had every reason to quit became beacons for others trapped in darkness. And yes, there are days when we don't even have the strength to pray, and that's okay. Your tears are prayers too. Your silence still reaches heaven. God collects every tear. Psalm 56 verse 8 says, He stores them in a bottle. Not one drop is wasted, so take a deep breath and listen. What you're facing today is not the end, it's only a chapter. Maybe the hardest chapter, but still just a chapter. And God is a masterful author who never ends stories in the dark. Because those who trust in the Lord may cry through the night, but joy always comes in the morning. If you're holding out for that new dawn, don't let go now, don't quit now, because you might be just one prayer away from the breakthrough you've been longing for. And even if that breakthrough takes time, the journey itself will strengthen you so that when it comes, you'll be ready to embrace it fully. Let this be your truth. The pain you're feeling today will one day become the testimony that brings hope to others. And if you've got even a sliver of strength left, write this sentence somewhere. I will not give up, because God is still using my pain for something far greater. Read it every day until your faith rises above your fear and your hope outshines your despair. You are not defined by what you went through, but by the one who carries you through the storm, and that one is God. He's the same God who turns mourning into dancing, ashes into crowns, rock bottom into purpose, and pain into destiny. How many times have you looked at yourself and thought, I messed everything up, believing you no longer deserve anything good? Maybe you're carrying a mistake from years ago, a rash decision, a harsh word, a betrayal, a relapse, a single choice that changed everything. And ever since, even without speaking it aloud, you've believed the lie that you're no longer worthy of grace or redemption. But hear this clearly and let it sink in. You are not what happened to you. You are not your failure. You are who God says you are. What silently destroys so many lives today isn't just external trouble. It's the inner guilt whispering, you'll never be enough. Voices that say, you'll never change, or God can't use someone like you after what you've done. Have you heard them? You're not alone. Scripture shows us that even the greatest heroes of faith stumbled, including Peter, one of Jesus' closest friends. Peter witnessed miracles, walked on water, swore he'd never leave Christ, and yet he denied him 3 times when it mattered most. Imagine the shame, the heartbreak, the weight of that failure, and how he must have felt completely unworthy afterward. But what did Jesus do? Did he abandon Peter or cut him off? No, he restored him and asked 3 times, "Do you love me?" One question for each denial. Then he gave Peter a divine mission. Feed my sheep, which meant, take care of my people, I trust you. That same Peter who failed so deeply became the rock of the early church and led 3,000 souls to Christ in a single day. That's grace, that's redemption, and it's still available for you today if you're willing to believe it and walk in it. Now think, how many times have you given up on dreams, goals, or healing simply because you felt too broken to try again? Yes, you may have made poor choices, hurt people, lost your way, but you have never lost your worth in the eyes of your Creator. Your worth was never about what you achieved or where you failed, but about the unconditional love God has for you. And if that feels too good to be true, I get it. The world teaches us that mistakes deserve punishment, but heaven moves in mercy. The world stares at your past, but God sees your future. The world defines you by what you did. God calls you by who you are becoming, and that makes all the difference. Did you know the Apostle Paul used to persecute Christians? He supported executions and was feared by many. Yet even then, he had a life-changing encounter with Jesus, and God not only forgave him but raised him up as one of the greatest missionaries. Paul went on to write nearly half of the New Testament. The one who once tore down became someone who built up. Because God delights in transforming the very people the world has given up on, and he wants to do the same with you. It doesn't matter how far you've fallen or how messy your life seems. God is an expert in rebuilding broken lives. He's not looking for perfection. He's looking for a sincere heart, a heart that whispers, God, I failed, but if there's still hope, change me. And yes, there is hope. There always is. As long as there's breath in your lungs, there's a chance to begin again. Maybe what's holding you back isn't the mistake itself, but how harshly you've judged yourself since. It's time to release that. Look in the mirror and see someone in progress, someone with life ahead, someone who might fall but still chooses to rise. If you've been waiting for a sign to start over, this is it, this message, this moment, this beat in your chest saying, there's still something great ahead. Don't ignore it, and if you want to take a practical step, write down everything you feel condemns you, every regret, every burden. Then, over those words, write, forgiven, restored, starting again. Keep that paper close. It's your reminder. You no longer live under condemnation. You live under grace, because the enemy's biggest lie is that your story is over. But God's truth says you're just getting started. You are not your failure. You are the beloved child of a God who will never give up on you. Not now, not ever. Maybe you've had a moment when everything collapsed. A door closed, a relationship ended, a dream died, and you felt lost. It was like the ground disappeared, and your heart screamed, "It's over. Nothing makes sense anymore." But that's not the end. God doesn't close doors to punish you. He closes them because He's about to open a new one you haven't seen yet. How often do we try to hold on to things God has already finished? Stay in places where the air is gone and the season is over. And when it all finally falls apart, it hurts, because no one likes to lose. No one wants to start over. It's scary and uncertain. But you know what hurts more? Staying stuck in what no longer lives. God lets some things collapse so He can rebuild you deeper. God doesn't allow things to end as punishment, but as a new beginning, because He sees what you haven't seen yet. Sometimes what you thought was your everything was only the first step toward something far greater than you imagined. The Bible is filled with new beginnings. Abraham had to leave his homeland, his comfort zone, to step into a divine promise. Ruth lost her husband, but chose to move forward, and God placed her in the lineage of Jesus, redemption after deep loss. The people of Israel spent 40 years in the wilderness before they could enter the Promised Land. It was part of the process. These stories remind us that before every great promise, there is often a long process, and the end of one season is part of that. Are you willing to trust that God knows exactly what He's doing, even when everything around you feels lost and broken? Because it's in the middle of the chaos that God moves the most powerfully. He creates order from what we call mess. The Apostle Paul said, "We know that all things work together for the good of those who love God." Not some things, all things. Even the things that make you cry today. Maybe you lost someone who was your anchor, or a job that gave you stability. Maybe it was a dream that felt so certain, but then it suddenly fell apart. And now you wonder if trying again is even worth it. Let me tell you, it is worth it. Starting over is one of the most powerful acts of faith because it takes courage to begin again. To begin again is to say, "I don't know what's ahead, but I trust the one who is walking with me, even when your heart is shattered." Steve Harvey, one of America's greatest television hosts, lived through this. He lost everything, slept in his car, went hungry. He was humiliated but held on to his faith, praying daily, "God, I know you didn't bring me this far just to leave me now." Years later, he not only rebuilt his life, but became a global inspiration, because he understood failure isn't final. It's a part of the journey, and maybe that's what you need to hear today, that this ending is not a full stop, but a pause. It's a moment to reflect, to grow, to heal. Your heart may be exhausted, your eyes swollen from crying, but God is still writing. And God never stops halfway. He finishes what He starts, even when you feel like you've reached the edge of your story. Yes, starting over can feel scary, but what if what's ahead is better than anything that's come before? What if the pain you feel right now is actually the beginning of a new season, one where you mature, bloom, and thrive? Let this truth settle in you. Your story isn't over. It's just turning a new page, and God is leading you into something new. You may not see it yet, but you will. You may not understand now, but you will. What feels like the end will one day be testimony. And if you're ready to take a step of faith, even with fear, here's one idea. Take 10 minutes a day for the next 5 days. Talk to God without asking for anything. Just thank Him, even through tears, and say, "Lord, I don't understand, but I trust you." That simple act of gratitude can shift your perspective, because sometimes we must lose in order to be set free. Sometimes a chapter must close before a new one can begin, so don't resist the endings that God allows. I promise you this, whenever God closes a door, He has already opened a bright window filled with His light. If you are listening to this right now, it means your journey is not over yet. It means there is still a purpose for your life, and heaven still holds a plan for you. What once felt like an ending might actually be the beginning of something greater. Maybe the tears you've cried were watering the soil for a new season to grow. You're not here by accident. This very moment holds divine meaning for your soul. Just because things are hard right now doesn't mean God's plan for you has stopped. Don't stop believing. Don't stop moving, even when your heart feels heavy. Every season has its end, and a new one often begins quietly but powerfully. The sunrise always comes after the darkest hour. so it is with God's timing in your life. Keep standing, keep trusting, because what's ahead is far greater than what's behind. The new season God has prepared for you is drawing near with every breath you take. What you thought was lost might just be the key to your real new beginning. Do not give up. You're about to see why the waiting and the pain were worth it. A fresh season of light is coming to embrace you with hope, grace, and open arms.